participant friends, we started to discuss about the principles of teaching. At the same time, we discussed about the magazines of teaching, which are very much important for all those means who you are preparing yourself to face state examination, maybe central or state. At the same time, these are very important contents which are included in the syllabus of B.Ed course as well as in all other professional courses. Friends, by completing the discussion on the magazines of teaching, today we are to go back to another area, that is significant trends in modern teaching learning process. Friends, things are changing so much rapidly because of the changes of time as well as changes in the domain of knowledge of the global social order. Therefore, in the field of modern teaching, the term modern has been used before the term teaching, not traditional teaching. So, modern teaching on modern learning process, things are getting or things are changing very dynamically or rapidly, and as you are the aspirants who are expecting to enter into the sector of education, you are to be well acquainted with all the modern trends which are taking place or resulted in the field of teaching, and thenceforth the other modern trends which are developed in the field of learning too. Friends, let us discuss, you see, systematically. Once we say as significant trends of modern teaching as well as significant trends of modern learning, for doing so or for understanding so much well, for explaining in proper manner what is to be done, we have to study the term first of all, that is significant trends. These two terms are to be well understood by us. And once we study, then we see that significant trends that have come to the field of modern teaching and learning, we are, you see, once we see the significant trends, meaning of this term significant trends, then we see that, let us go back to the next slide. The term significant very simply means important. Important, you see, trends important or large enough to have an effect or to be noticed. Means large changes have been taking place. Noticeable changes have been taking place. On the other hand, the term trend means a general direction in which something is developing or changing. And this way, the term significant trends in the field of modern teaching and learning include all the important ideas, concepts, theories, knowledge, information, etc. that have already occupied specific place and that have specific significance for the future of the teaching learning process to make teaching systematic and learning result oriented exercise. So friends, once we say a significant trends, then we have to know about all the latest development, maybe in the field of teaching or maybe in the field of learning. And you see, during this ongoing COVID-19 situation, once you very minutely observe the total global social order, and by leaving other things, you see aside, once you study or see or scrutinize the educational parameter or the field, maybe you see from primary to university level, then in all stages and levels, in all aspects, changes have been taking place. Suppose in management of examination, now the concept of online examination certainly you have come to know about. At the same time, you are now witnessing the online classes, and this is one of the modern opportunities, so that staying anywhere else not going to the educational institutional complex, you can learn whatever you like to learn or whatever you feel important for learning from your own individual side. So friends, once we say significant developments in the field of teaching and learning, we mean about the latest progress or development in the field of concerning to ideas, concerning to concepts, concerning to theories, concerning to knowledge domain, concerning to the domain of information, which are rapidly developing in modern social order because of drastic changes in the field of science as well as in the field of technology. Let us go back to the next slide. Teaching, once we come to this most important area, or once we consider this term, this is a very meaningful term. This is one of the most important activities of the educational process, maybe online teaching or maybe offline teaching, maybe modern teaching, maybe you see traditional teaching. Teaching is not a simple term. It includes training, instruction, development of cognitive process, means knowledge domain, on abilities, capabilities, guidance, personal help, etc., which help to take place learning in an organized or systematic way or manner. In a domain of education, means in the area of education, and in our general life, teaching bears different impact on the learners. Means depending on teaching, learners learn, and depending on learning, learners solve very critical problems for living life in successful way, considering the change demand of time or facing the challenges which the sense time has been brought or has been bringing forward towards our life parameter, towards our living parameter or living style. Let us go back to the next slide. In the formal process of education, once we come to the formal mechanism, means living other things. Living other things means our family or other aspects. Once we come to the educational field, then we see different roles are played. We see that varied roles are played by the process of teaching. As a science, it's a science. I discussed in earlier classes that teaching is to be considered or can be considered as a science. At the same time, it is or it can be considered as an art. Once we consider teaching as a science, it demands the application of varied scientific procedures. When we consider teaching as an art, it demands the artistic capability of the concerned person in the process of dissemination of information to the community of learners. In lower stage of education, teaching attempts to make all the psychophysical attributes or capabilities and energies ready for higher learning in future. That is done. It is a process of making all attributes or qualities or capabilities and energies ready step by step for higher learning, following the psychic specificities of psychic order of human personality. Let us go back to the next slide. From traditional perspective, when we consider teaching, we see that it is treated as the process of mutual interaction between the teachers and the learners. And that's why still today, going to the varied classes, we apply this approach, forgetting about all the new developments which basically the students do not like to accept nowadays in totality. Teachers teach and learners learn. This is the basic reality. It is such a process by the help of which direct influences of the teachers on the learners are treated important. Without the presence of the teacher, students cannot learn anything else once teaching is considered from traditional parameter. In such process, the personal feelings, capabilities, aspirations, etc. of the teachers are treated important, and the presence of classroom situation has also been treated important. Let us go back to the next slide. From the modern point of view, things are different, friends, and that's why teaching is treated as a multi-dimensional exercises of the teachers and of the learners too. It's a where there are many dimensions. So it is multi-dimensional exercise of the teachers and the learners. The roles of the students are equally important as the roles of the teachers, because students cannot remain sitting, being dull participants or dead, listeners. In such process, the personal philosophy of the teachers, personal capabilities, intellectual potentialities of the teachers, knowledge of sociology of the teachers, knowledge of economics of the teachers, knowledge of politics of the teachers, culture of the teachers, religion of the teachers, etc. of the teachers, and the individual capabilities of the learners, attitude of the learners, emotional capabilities, aspirations, capacity to do hard labor, etc. of the students have special importance once we consider teaching from modern standpoint or modern point of view. And that's why teaching is treated as a multi-dimensional exercise. At the same time, not only teaching but also learning is treated as a multi-dimensional exercise. So it means both the activities are multi-dimensional exercises or activities. Let us go back to the next slide. Means above all, the outward environment also bears a definite role in the process of teaching. The other things which have already been explained, leaving all those things, the other things means definite roles. What environment where students are to learn or teachers are to teach the students? Thus, teaching is a very complex social activity. It's not a simple, economic way for the transaction of knowledge or information in traditional classroom setting. Instead of that, it's a very complex social activity from modern standpoint. As a social process, the social political situation, social philosophy, value system of the society, cultural specialties of society, etc., leave definite impression on the process of teaching. Success of teaching this way depends on personal factor of the teacher and learner, means the student, social situation, political philosophy of the society, economic conditions or situations, values, cultural situations, etc. of the personal life and society, as well of the teacher as well as of the learner. Let us go back to the next slide. With the help of thorough scrutiny of all the aspects of personal life and social life as well, experts of the present day society have expressed different viewpoints concerning to the concept of teaching. To clarify the idea, some of the important definitions provided by different educationists may be cited here, with basically two definitions have been placed here, examples have been given here, so that you can have a holistic concept concerning to the total process of teaching as well as the process of learning. This is H.C. Morrison, and Morrison defined teaching this way, which is being quoted by me, placed before you. Teaching is an intimate contact, it's a close contact between a more mature personality, experienced personality, and a less mature one, which is designed to further the education of the latter. Means the experienced person as well as means the teacher, the less experienced or less mature means the student. These are the interaction between these two groups take place in the process of teaching as well as learning. Let us go back to the next one. Then M.L. Gazet has explained, and it is being quoted placed before you. It is, teaching is interpersonal influence. Interpersonal, me as a teacher, you as a student. Interpersonal influence on you as a student, me as a teacher. There is interpersonal influence aimed at sensing the behavior potential of another person. My impression is to change the academic behavior of you all, and your participation is encouraging me. Means once you express your views, I will understand the capability of you people so that I can decide myself what approach I should better follow for the transaction of information, which I am doing always, assessing that my technique or my process of dissemination is quite scientific and quite fine, but it is wrong conception up till you see I fail to understand your capabilities of consuming or your acceptability power or your reception power, and that's why it's a interpersonal activity. The first definition between the two of teaching, that is the definition provided by Morrison, represents the idea of teaching prevalent in autocratic society. Autocratic society. In autocratic society, the roles of the teachers are treated important than the roles of the students. In such socio-political system, students' roles are treated as secondary, which up till now remaining or living life in democratic social setup. We go to classroom, deliver lecture, do not become mindful at the time of assessing the psychic order of the students. We are doing mistake, or we are committing mistake during that time, or by following such approach, because this approach is not correct once we are living or practicing teaching in democratic social order. Because out of the two definitions, the first definition represents the exercise of the teacher in autocratic social order. But in democracy, students have 100% liberty to disseminate or to express their feelings, or they can put question once they are sitting in the classroom situation to you. Means when you are transacting varied information, and that's why you never can dominate the students in the classroom situation. Domination is a wrong approach, and that's why for becoming successful in democratic setting, particularly as a teacher, you are or you must have to have thorough or detailed knowledge concerning to modern psychology as well as modern pedagogy. Let us go back to the next slide. In such society, students are in autocratic society. Students are to follow everything that is expected by their teachers. Master, there is a word. All imposed ideas and ideals are to be the basic ideas and ideals of the life of the students. Students should follow the command of the superior group, and they are to sacrifice their own likes and dislikes. The likes and dislikes of the teachers should be the likes and dislikes of the students in autocratic social setting or in autocratic exercise of teaching. Let us go back to the next slide. The second definition out of the two which I have given here, that is the definition of by Gazet, represents the idea of teaching prevalent in democratic society, and that's why for your knowledge two definitions have been placed here so that you can understand the role of teacher in an autocratic social order. At the same time, you can understand your role as a teacher in democratic social order. In democratic social life, hopes, aspirations, likes and dislikes of all are treated equally important. Therefore, in democratic social setting, both the teachers and students play equal roles in the system of education. Means teacher cannot impose authority of her students in democratic social setting. Instead of that, he is to go or she is to go to the class with an open mindset. Means he is to give, means translate his knowledge, and he is to receive many things from his or her students. In teaching, the roles of the students are equally important with the roles of the students once we are, practicing teaching in democratic social order. So friends, you have to know pedagogy in detail. You have to understand pedagogy in detail so that you can understand in holistic way the concept of teaching in varied social order. The term teaching bears or expresses varied meaning. It's a very expressive term. It's a very technical term which needs special care at the time of explaining. So friends, for becoming a teacher, you are to study and study. You are to be well acquainted with the knowledge of modern psychology. You are to be well acquainted with the knowledge of modern pedagogy. You are to be well acquainted with the knowledge of modern science. You are to be well acquainted with the knowledge of modern technology. And living all these above all these specifications, you are to be well acquainted with the changing scenario of the global social order, and you are to be quite successful in assessing the impact of change time on human life as well as social order. And this much for today, particularly in this class, these things have been discussed so much well. On the later stage, we have to discuss the other part concerning to this heading, particularly significant trends in modern teaching learning process. Thank you so much.